So then memory T and B cells. So whenever you have this activation, so remember the dendritic cell, how it's activating these naive T and B cells? Well, these dendritic cells, like when they have activation, these T and B cells, they don't always become these cytotoxic T cells, these helper T cells or plasma cells. Some of them just hang around. So they're like people who defer their graduation. They are learned, they have been exposed to education, but they're not quite entering the workforce. So again, not all T and B cells become active once they encounter their antigen. So memory T and B cells, these are like records of antigens, and these are very important for vaccination. Why? Because and preventing yourself from being infected again. So these are like your immune cell records, and sometimes they can last for only a few months. Sometimes they can last decades. That's why, especially for the ones that don't hang around for a while, that's why you need vaccine boosters, because some of the times you need to do multiple exposures to the same antigen to actually build up a sufficient population of these memory T and B cells so you can fight this same infection in the future. So it allows for a faster response, and I think we're out of time, so we'll have to cover vaccines in the next lecture. But this is like a reserve. So again, you're not going to spend you spend all this time training these new T cells, cytotoxic T cells, these new helper cells, these new plasma cells. So eventually they're activated, but they die eventually. They don't last around. They don't hang around forever. Why? Again, your body has all these cells. It can't keep all these cells that are in response to every single new pathogen you encounter. That would be way too expensive to keep all these white blood cells around. So these cells up here that are not memory T cells, they actually die at the very end when they don't have anything to combat. So these allow you to maintain some records so that you don't have to start the whole process again. That memory T and B cell or creating these cytotoxic and this antigen matching process. It's actually a very long process. Why? You have to screen billions of cells, you have to screen billions of T cell receptors and B cell receptors. So again, this is a very long process. It's not as quick as I displayed it. And Treg cells, let's end on this. So there are cells that, okay, what do you do with your immune response after the infection is cleared, after the pathogen is gone? So you need something to kind of help things dial down. You don't want to be constantly in inflammation. So these are there to suppress the activity of other immune cells. So sometimes they're called suppressor T cells. So Treg cells, they're also important in immune self-tolerance as well. So they're going to tell, like, if say a cytotoxic T cell is trying to attack your own cells, it's going to tell, hey, this is our own cells, calm down. So here we have a self-antigen. So this is actually a part of your own cells. And here we have a T cell, cytotoxic T cell that's ready to attack your own cells. So what do we have in the background? We have a Treg cell. And what's the Treg cell? It's going to try to prevent that cytotoxic T cell from attacking your own cells. So Treg cell is kind of like there, okay, calm the F down. You don't want to attack your own body. So again, Treg cells are there to help prevent this attacking of your own antigens by your own T cells. But what if this doesn't happen? So what if Treg cells can't intervene and these cytotoxic T cells end up attacking your own cells, antigens, and your own cells? That's when we get our autoimmune disorders. So again, what are those? We did cover these briefly. So what happens if your body sees their own antibodies, antigens as pathogens? Well, you're going to get this immune system attacking your own cells, such as rheumatoid arthritis. Say you're building antibodies and cytotoxic T cells against things like chondroitin sulfate or things like chondrocytes, things that actually you need for your joints. Well, this is going to cause degradation of your joints and the cartilage within, so this is one of the things that can trigger rheumatoid arthritis. Vitiligo. Remember Michael Jackson? And so again, this is what he claimed to have. But if you've seen people with vitiligo, especially someone with a darker skin tone, they have these white patches. Why? Well, that means they have an autoimmune disease in which their T cells and all their plasma cells are creating things that attack their own melanocytes. So no melanocytes, no melanin, no skin color. Lupus. Oh, this is really bad. So the lupus is like, it's an autoimmune disorder, but it's like so broad. Like basically these people, when they have this lupus, they can attack pretty much every tissue in their body, especially if like I have an awful, like one example of a really bad type of lupus is like if they produce antibodies against DNA. What cells have DNA in your body? Well, pretty much everything except red blood cells and platelets, right? So this is why they have widespread systemic reactions. Why? Because their immune cells are attacking every single cell in their body. But again, it depends on what this is happening, what's being targeted by the immune cells. Hey, what if the immune system also attacks pancreatic beta cells? These beta cells in the beta islets. Hey, we did cover that, right? Type 1 diabetes, right? So what cells produce insulin? Beta cells. So what happens if you don't get that auto-reg self-tolerance and then all of a sudden you have plasma cells throwing antibodies against your beta cells? Well, no beta cells. If they start dying off, no insulin. No insulin. Can you move glucose into your cells and out of the bloodstream? Nope. So glucose stays in your bloodstream and eventually accumulates. Why? No insulin allowing your cells to take glucose from the bloodstream into your cells. Hey, what if the immune system creates autoantibodies against hormone receptors? Hey, remember this? The HPT axis? So hypothalamus, pituitary, and then thyroid. So thyroid again produces thyroid hormones. So the thing about this, what happens if these receptors for TSH, say you somehow, these antibodies, again, these antibodies are randomly generated, but say one gets through and then it actually attacks these TSH receptors and actually activates them. So this is like a stuck gas pedal. Say someone all of a sudden like a rock gets wedged into your gas pedal, it's going to cause things in overdrive. So when you have these TSH receptors being overstimulated by autoantibody, this causes way too much thyroid hormone to be produced. So again, what happens? So much thyroid hormone is being produced that it overwhelms this brake system. So it's, again, it's like a stuck gas pedal. So you produce way, way too much thyroid hormone. All right, so that's it for today. We're over time. Vaccines will be on Wednesday.